You can replace this text with any text you wish. You can either write in this text, when the sky cracked open and the stars started screaming, we finally understood, this wasn't just an invasion. It was the end of everything we ever loved. For a moment, the world stood silent. No gunfire. No alarms. Just a distant rumble, like the universe itself was holding its breath, and then, the swarm arrived. The sun over Vespera 9 had always been warm, comforting, and golden, a promise that life would go on, even in the forgotten edges of the Imperium. But on that morning, 17-year-old Aric Valen stood on the rooftop of his family's hab block and watched the sky rot into a deep, sickening purple that it started with a single tear across the heavens, a rippling wound, like reality itself was being clawed open from the other side. Lights fell from the breach, not like meteors, but like eyes, millions of them, dripping from the void. The Tyranids were here. At first, people froze. Some prayed. Some screamed. Some simply stared, unable to process the horror descending upon them. Aric was one of them. His little sister Lira tugged his sleeve, her voice trembling. Aric, why is the sky shaking? He didn't have an answer. No one did. Moments later, the alarms blared across the city. Vox towers screamed evacuation orders. The ground shook as defense batteries fired into the sky, but it didn't matter. Nothing mattered in front of a hive fleet. The first wave struck like an ocean of nightmares. Chitinous wings. Bone scythes. Screams that didn't sound human. Aric grabbed Lira's hand and ran, their parents already lost in the stampede of terrified civilians. The air burned with bioplasma. Buildings toppled like sandcastles. The smell of acid blood and burning flesh filled the streets. At every corner, people fought, prayed, and died, but Aric didn't stop. Not because he was brave, because Lira's tiny hand kept trembling in his, and letting go meant losing the only family he had left. As they reached the edge of the city, a group of exhausted Planetary Defense Force soldiers shouted at them to keep moving. Among them was Lieutenant Mara Kessel, her armor broken, her face streaked with grime and blood. You too, she yelled. Follow the refugees. Don't look back. Whatever happens, keep running. But the ground split open behind them. A monstrous carnifex crawled out, roaring as it charged. Mara pushed Aric and Lira behind a wrecked transport. I'll hold it off, she yelled, you'll die. Aric screamed. She smiled, a tired but fearless smile. If I die saving 2 more lives, that's a good death in the Imperium. Aric never forgot that moment, the bravery, the sacrifice, the sound of Mara's bolter going silent as he and Lira ran. That was the day the sky died. That was the day Aric learned that heroes are born in terror, not glory. The evacuation tunnels beneath the planet were supposed to be safe. They weren't. Thousands of refugees crowded inside, children crying, mothers praying, old men clutching rusted lost guns they barely knew how to use. Aric held Lira close as the tunnels trembled from the battle raging. Above, every few minutes, the distant roars of Tyranid creatures echoed through the metal corridors. Everyone jumped at every sound. Aric tried to stay calm for Lira's sake, but the truth was he was breaking inside. How do you survive something that eats worlds? He whispered to himself. The answer came from a voice behind him. You fight. Even when fighting seems pointless. It was Sister Helena, a battle sister of the Adepta Sororitas, armor cracked and dented, but eyes burning with unshakable faith. She knelt beside Aric. You protected your sister. That makes you stronger than you think. Aric shook his head. I'm scared. So am I, Helena said softly. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision that your fear will not decide the ending. Before Aric could reply, the lights flickered, then the roaring began again. Louder this time. The Tyranids had found the tunnel entrance. People panicked. Soldiers formed a shaky firing line. The smell of ozone filled the air as lost guns charged. Helena rose, drawing her bolter. Aric looked at Lira. then he made his choice that he stood up. Aric? Lira whispered. What are you doing? He swallowed hard. Protecting you. Like Mom and Dad would have wanted. He grabbed a fallen lost gun from the ground. His hands shook, but he didn't back down. The Tyranids charged into the tunnels like a tidal wave of flesh and claws. Gunfire lit up the darkness. Screams echoed. Bodies fell. Aric fired until his arms went numb, until he couldn't hear anything but the pounding of his own heart. Through the chaos, Helena fought beside him, a lone flame in the darkness. When the last creature fell, the tunnels were filled with smoke, silence, and the scent of loss. But Lira was alive. So was Aric, and hundreds of others had survived because ordinary people had chosen to stand their ground. Moments later, evacuation transports finally arrived, guided by the Imperial Navy. As Aric and Lira boarded, Helena placed a hand on his shoulder. You saved lives today, she said. Remember that. In the Imperium, hope is rare, but you carried it when it mattered most. Aric looked back at the burning tunnels, the ruins of his world, the bodies of heroes he would never forget. Will we ever come home? Lira asked. Aric wrapped an arm around her. Our home isn't the planet, he said gently. It's the people we protect. As long as we're together, we still have something the Tyranids can never consume. The ship lifted off, leaving behind the dying world of Vespera. 9. But within Aric burned a spark, small, fragile, but alive. A promise, that even in the grim darkness of the far future, humanity would keep fighting, not because victory was certain, but because giving up meant losing everything worth living for.